This is the Winning Plays podcast on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider for the NBA's winningest franchise.
Winning Plays podcast is back. The one and only Chris Forsberg, NBC Sports Boston, is also back as we count down, Chris, T-minus 13 days to the thing that only Celtics fans seem to care about right now, the trade deadline.
I was going to say, do you think it's T-minus 13 listeners today? Because we have seen, we were just joking before we jumped on, people seem disengaged from this team, but trade deadline talk is the one thing that will reel them back in.
Bring them in. Well, the Winning Plays listeners they're always engaged here.
That is true. We don't have good people.
No, but let's start with, I guess, the team here. Second 3-game losing streak of the season. So many moving parts here in and out of the lineups over the last week. So it's clearly not fair to read too much into this, given that a couple of these losses were of the very shorthanded variety. But what's your read, if anything, of the last week? And I guess there is a little bit of a trend here of the offense kind of going wayward in the last couple of weeks here. What you make anything of that, given what's going on?
It's time to put some respect on Marcus Smart's name. That maybe people have taken Marcus for a little bit for granted over the years, and especially this year. And maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but when I think their offensive rating in these 3 games is 104, and with Marcus, it's up at like 118, and so. I think there's a direct correlation. I think they just look a little bit more collected, and you hear Joe Mazzulla complaining about spacing and pace and getting into actions quicker. I think Marcus has a way of drumming that up a little bit. And just the other thing is just like Marcus in crunch time, like he's just Mr. Chaos, and he just gets to rebounds and he makes something happen. And so 2 games now where you've really missed that at the finish line. And so I just kind of go back to that. I know we always love to have the conversation about Smart's value, but I think it's been accentuated here without him. And I know they didn't have a whole bunch of guys for that Orlando game. And, but like Miami and against the Knicks, I just felt like his presence was sorely missed out there. And, that's, I guess we can talk about the crunch time woes overall, and Tatum's had a rough week and Jaylen Brown's had a rough week. But to me, it's like when healthy and full, this team alleviates a lot of those issues, and yet they've got to be better, because when have they ever been fully healthy through the duration of these, like the last 10 years?
Yeah, it's a situation where I agree. Like first is like, I've been probably one of the tougher people in the market on Smart over the years, but I'll like, this has easily been his best year offensively by far. And you can see his ability to, I think, settle things down in those moments kind of coming into play here. And then also like, defense creating offense and creating those opportunities. So it certainly has been a tough time to lose him, when you're already down a bunch of guys like this. But at the same time, it'll be, if this is a time where he can rest all those other 100 elements that he has too, this is while they have a little bit of extended time off here in the coming weeks with, not a very, definitely not a heavy travel schedule, and certainly not a heavy game schedule there too, that could bode well. But you brought up the crunch.
What's got you most worked up then? Like what are you most angry about?
I mean, the crunch time stuff is, I still think it's like, this is still this team's Achilles heel.
Yeah.
And the clutch numbers for this year were like good, but I still think that a lot of that was not true crunch time stuff. And we kind of got back to that in the last 2 losses. And it's still,
So brace me, because I know whenever I go on my programs tonight or soon, it's going to be, does Jason Tatum have the clutch gene? Are we worried about Tatum in the clutch?
No, because I think you put him, I think 2 things there. One, I think Tatum in these games has been run into the ground a bit in these spots. And then I just don't like him being, I guess like last night, the missed shot against the Knicks from the free throw line, pretty much got a wide open look. It's really hard to find any kind of fault with that.
Nope.
And then, the Miami was a disaster for him and the entire team in the fourth quarter of that game. But I kind of put that on like second end of a back-to-back,
Yep.
40 minutes. And that's, if anything, the trend as we get into pivot into trade deadline talk here, it's like, okay, like, when's the rest coming for these guys?
Exactly. And so, I mean, I know you've been beating the same drum as me, but isn't it wild that there are still people out there that are like, big man is what they need. Big man is what they need. And I watch Tatum and Brown getting run into the ground 40 plus minutes, and I'm thinking, what are we doing here? It's got to be a wing, right?
That has to be the first preference. Yeah. The problem is it's much harder to get a wing.
For sure.
And you're gonna have to play a lot more for a wing. But no, if you could pick one or the other, there's no question you want a wing, because then you can play smaller a lot easier, and then that's fine. If you just want to, you can pick your spots to rest Robb or rest Al along the way, and knowing that any other big you get is probably not going to play in the playoffs regardless, unless one of those guys is hurt. So, like, if you want to have someone who can actually help you in the rotation, conceivably, both in the now and maybe in a postseason series, then wing should be top choice. I just think the options there that are actually attainable are probably, few and far between.
Yeah, and it's certainly not as sexy as the potential big men that are out there. And I'm with you. That's where I kind of come down on it. Like, a big man would be a nice luxury. I don't know how many back-to-backs they have left in the year. But so pacing Robb and Al would be great. But just like you said, when you get to the playoffs, there's going to be 0 minutes for like a third backup big. If those guys are playing anywhere near 35 minutes a night, 30 minutes a night, like, all of a sudden you're covered at the center spot. And so I've long thought, even if it's just for pockets of rest, and even the wing player might be more regular season than postseason, but like, we went through this last year. Jason Tatum had nothing left in the tank, and we're trending towards that again based on his workload this year. It'd explore every opportunity. And so I know everybody out there is saying, like, they want a big, they want a big. I think sometimes it gets a little bit lost in translation too. Like, they definitely want a big player, but like, that could be over 6'7", sure, and someone who can play the wing. And so, give me every and Alec Burks. Like, who's your guy? Because, like, have you dug in on someone you really want yet?
I think the perfect player for them from, like, I don't know if he counts as a wing, but could play the forward type role and can shoot, is like a PJ Washington. And I just don't think that's not going to happen I think he's going to be available. I don't think they're going to be willing to pay the price on him, because you have to pay him.
But didn't we just see Rui in an RFA?
That's true. Right. Like, how much better is he than, like, Rui, is why I think Washington is better than Rui, but is he, like,
not
one unprotected first? Right. It's not like he's going to fetch much more than one first round pick.
So let's say they want a first. Couldn't you do top 20 protected? And, like, you're
lottery protected, like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if it's outside the lottery, I don't care. Like, I just feel like, what is the better option? Are you better sitting with the 2024 first round pick and waiting for it to be 29th or 30th, or spending that and hoping that the only thing it does, it takes you out of the running in case of, like, a really big name becomes available, right? Because then you're not I guess you could trade 26, 28, 30, but, like, we're talking about the 2030s now, and that's kind of crazy. And so I like the idea of having that ammo available, and yet, like, it's all about right now. And so Brad Stevens has used first round picks. So what's another one? I think you just, if you can make a move to get a pick. Now, it wouldn't even be 24, right? It would be 25.
It'd be 25, right? Yeah. 25, 27, 29. That's your range. So, and that gets tough, because you do start worrying that just, like, craziness happens. But if you're trading just one of them, I don't think it's that bad. And they have someone. Don't they have an early second rounder, like Houston's second rounder? Like, yeah, that's go through my notes. Yeah, they have, and it's like they don't get it if it's 31 or 32. They get a much worse pick in that case. So it's like, if Houston really tanks, they won't get it. But at least you can float that as being like, okay, if you trade that now, maybe you'll get 32. So it's a little bit of a a tease on that front for. I wonder if that's enough. Or maybe again, you just do that. Maybe just put some protections on a future first, pick swap. I don't know. Like, there's got to be something that you can get in the market for a PJ. Or my only concern with PJ, and he's at near the top of my list, and
I remember talking to the guys over at First to the Floor. They've been on the PJ bandwagon for a long time, and like the potential to replace Al down the road is there. Like if I think he'd blossom in Boston a little bit more. I do worry about a little bit of like redundancy with Grant, undersized, kind of big man, 3-and-D. Like there is some redundancy there, but I think PJ's ceiling is, I don't want to say higher, but maybe I just think he fits really well here and could blossom. So I'm all on board. I do like Jalen McDaniels. I don't know why they would trade him, but Charlotte's a hot mess. So like, they got to figure some stuff out. It gets harder looking around the league. Like, does Javonte Green do anything for you?
Yeah, if he wasn't hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem. It's like you're not going to give up more than a second round pick for him regardless. But then what does he have after a knee surgery, like mid-season? That's beyond grade 5s for Tatum and the rest of the team and great dunks.
I just wonder, I mean, I think, and this is what I don't even know what his timeline is. But like you say knee, and it gets worrisome. And then I look around like Alec Burks. I mean, what are the Pistons doing? Probably making too much money.
Yeah.
Some of these wings get difficult without, you don't want to have to, I guess, you're okay with moving Gallo, but it adds a layer of complication to this whole thing.
Right. You want to have, if you're going to move him, you want to move him for something that you're getting, like not a sure thing, but something that could actually help, as opposed to being like, maybe like it could be a complete dud. That looks kind of rough. I think PJ fits into one of the trade exceptions, so that would make it a little bit easier to navigate. But yeah, it's I don't know. I keep looking around the league looking for wings that make sense, and just like you said, it gets a little bit. It's harder than necessarily the pure big man spot where you right.
And I don't know. Will the buyout market? That's the other thing. Is like, what will the buyout market produce and all that? So,
I saw a report the other day what made me laugh. I forget where it was from. Where it was like, it was Rashawn Holmes. This isn't a wing. Exactly. I'm like, he has 2 years left of a player option, and he's not going to sniff that money again. Like, he should fire his agent immediately if he even considers a buyout. So it's like, that is, I mean, it has happened before where guys just want to play, but I don't think even if he gets out, like, he's not going to play more than 10 minutes anywhere, even if like some middle of the road team just desperately needs an extra big guy.
I'm trying to think, could they stretch him?
Why would they do that though?
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make any sense on the surface. I saw the same report and now like blew my mind. Scal's a big Rashawn Holmes guy, and it was like, wait, Rashawn Holmes going to be available? I'm like, he's got like 3 years left.
Like,
I don't know.
No, he's not.
I don't understand how this is working. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Floating pipe dreams.
The pipe dream I have though is still Naz Reid, and I know he's not a wing, but he sort of fits that 4-5 mold and would allow you to rest your bigs. And I think it's more because I like the upside long term, and sort of like a 3-headed monster until like Al fades away. Someone was telling me like Anthony Edwards loves him and that they don't think they would move him, but like they're not bringing him back this summer. So do you want Peyton Pritchard with another season and sort of balance your roster a little bit? Or I don't know, because this is, I think, logically, and it feels like sometimes the NBA teams are just in another world of how they think about stuff and roster management. So you just never know what a team dreams of.
Yeah, Reed's definitely someone you'd think like Pritchard and something else. I'd think how long and hard about that if that was on the table, because even though, he hasn't even, I don't know if he's even played a playoff game yet. He's just someone, even in the regular, he did play last year a little bit. He has a skill set that will help you win games in the regular season and also take the onus off of Al and Robb and also be a viable replacement alternative, which I don't know, like the Luke Cornett, I like situation right now where Joe Mazzulla, I mean, it's been up and down for him more so. Yeah. And, his limitations are becoming more clear, but at the same time, like there's the fact when he gets cut out of these rotations in the second half for a lot of these games entirely. And it's like, okay, if that's the case, then like Brad Stevens, you need to bring someone in here that like Joe will play, because this is not, the Tatum and Brown situation, like it is what it is. And if you want to be the 1 seed, like you might not have an alternative for that if the trade market's not there, but you still don't want to be playing. We're still seeing Horford and Robb like 30 plus minutes, way too much in these games.
I think Robb was 36 last night. And look, I want to see as much Robb as possible. And I think plus 21, like he was great. Good minutes. And I don't even think he's been that great the last week, because I do think the minutes are starting to pile up for him. I don't think he's been as bouncy. And I do think, like, you just got to tread cautiously here and find him nights where you don't play him a ton. And I get it. You're trying to win these games, but I worry sometimes that the Joe's undying thirst to win games is conspiring against it. And now on the other side, like, Tatum and Brown want to play, and Jason Tatum had a very snazzy suit on last night because he knew he'd be going to the podium to talk about being an all-star starter. And so, that matters to these guys. And yet, all right, well, then take care of business. I just keep saying, on their part, take care of business earlier, be better earlier, and then, maybe get some rest. And if the finals are your big prize, then play like it sometimes, and don't have the. And I don't mean to take it out on Tatum, because he's been awesome. The problem is, like, they suck when he's off the floor. Right. Like they don't have any answers right now, and they gotta kind of figure that out. And that it's so funny, like. Someone said the other day, I think I was doing early edition yesterday, and Trendy said something like, I think they need bench scoring. And I'm like, no, like, they got Malcolm Brogdon now and Grant. And then you look at it, and it's just like, not necessarily a bench scorer, but it's just, they need someone who can consistently knock down threes with bench units, or, Tatum in the bench lineups. And, unfortunately for Hauser, it's just, he's going through it. And I keep saying, because I don't want to seem like I'm coming down hard on him. I think he's got a bright future. I think he's going to be fine. But this year, if Joe doesn't trust him, you just need somebody else that he does. And so that falls back on Brad. Brad needs to find people that Mazzulla will trust.
Yeah. And that is, I think, the name of the game here in the next 2 weeks as we get closer.
Check out Screen Time, movies, streaming, and everything in between with us, Gary Tanguay and Drew Young.
We watch what you watch, so watch us wherever you get your podcasts, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, and we're pretty easy on the eye.
Yeah, no, we're not.
Speak for yourself. Screen Time, movie, streaming, and everything in between.
What's your take on how Joe Mazzulla has fit into the last week here? If anything, do you have any?
And I understand his mentality. His whole explanation about not wanting them to get into to change their personnel made complete sense. But as soon as Tatum doesn't get moving, when Sam Hauser is on the sideline saying go, 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 and no one's moving, that's when a coach needs to step in and be like, timeout, let's draw something up. Let's get going here. We're not tied. This isn't Thursday night against the Knicks. This was down 2. We got to be moving.
And to their credit, they did do that against the Knicks. Like you're down by 1 in a close game late. Like, yeah, let's get a possession going here, so we're not taking a shot with, or we're not running down the clock.
So learning, hopefully, like that, like what that was. But yeah, there's just little things, and I don't know how much falls back on coaching, but Jalen wasn't involved at all in that fourth quarter last night, and it wasn't until that play that they drew up that you're like, oh yeah, Jalen's out there. You can run a little action with Jason Tatum 40 feet from the basket and get an easy hoop. But yeah, you were talking about the rotation, and I wish I don't know what the right answer is there. Trusting Luke a little bit more, or it might. Sometimes we used to say this with Danny and Brad, right? Like, Brad had too many guys who wanted to play, and it was on Danny to clear that thing out. I think the opposite is true right now, and just like they need to find guys that will slot. I did like the whole somersault in the locker room thing. He is a quirky dude. I kind of like that about him, because I think you have to be true. Like, his press conferences are electric now. He might give you a 1-word answer and then stare at you for 8 seconds. And it's just who he is, and that's just how he operates. I think everyone's got their quirks. The one thing I keep going back to is, like, how do you think he's going to be in the playoffs? It's such an unknown.
Down to right now. It is. And that's where those, like, games like the Miami situation makes, not to make you worry, but, like, you hope, again, that stuff like that is a learning experience, where it's like that stuff you can't, like, there's certain stuff where, yeah, like playing through it, or, catching a team with the right person on the floor, that's great. Like, but just be ready to attack it if that's what your plan is. And if you're not ready to attack it, then then that's your job as coach. Like, you have to call that timeout there.
I do have one gripe, and you know this because I text you it every time. Derek White starts overtime last night, hits a 3 on like the first possession, and then he pulls them.
Get him out of there.
And now I get it. I think he was sort of setting it up to go offense, defense, and Brogdon started like bringing some good hustle and was fine, perfectly fine. But every time Derek White is on the court, it's usually a positive. And I do not understand the aversion to Derek White in crunch time right now. And I don't know if it's just like he wants to reward Brogdon, who's been, again, it's not like Brogdon is the issue. And Brogdon might not even be out there if it was smart. It might be the starters or whatever. But I just yearn for a little bit more Derek White in those situations because he's got that smart mentality where it's like good things happen. And not always going to knock down threes, not always going to be perfect defender because of his size. And yet I was a little baffled when they made the switch last night.
I didn't think about it too much in the moment, but I'm 100% with you now in hindsight of like, there's guys where, you know, White is not one of the guys where you feel like Joe ever rides him too much. If anything, it's like someone where he'll pull the trigger off at you bad. And in a situation where like he hit a shot, like, do you need to get Al Horford back into that game? Like, not necessarily. Like, save his minutes or have him come in sub for Robb so you save both of their minutes. Like, that worked a couple times in crunch times. I think we had OKC or something like that. Like someone early in the season where they just like those guys split the minutes, the center minutes down the stretch. And when they're both going over or getting close to your limits, like just do that.
Yeah.
If you have White where he's having a good game. So I'm with you. I think that's a really good point. And I think that's a way, if they don't get the wing situation that they want on the buyout market or the trade market, then like, hey, yeah, White's playing 26 minutes a game. How about you move that to 30 and bring the other guys, bring Tatum down to like 34, 35.
It made me laugh because then White was the guy who spoke in the locker room. It was like, wait,
yeah.
I mean, he had a perfectly fine game. But they also know that he's going to go up there and say all the right things. I'm like, we just need more Derek White in our life.
Just reliable. Just really reliable.
He's just a good dude. He's just happy. Like never takes losses too hard, and doesn't mean it doesn't bother him. It's just, any other player who was that good would probably be like, I should be out there in crunch time. And Derek just understands. Like the roster's a little bit loaded with guards, and even without Marcus Smart. So yeah, I don't know. It's ultimately I do. It's very easy to nitpick when they're losing. Things that bother us that the coach does, and then when they're winning, we like blissfully unaware.
I mean, he's had a great year. Like it's like there's no this. Yeah. This is clear nitpicking, and
but I do think some of these things matter, and I guess that's the bigger point here is that in playoff games that are almost invariably crunch time games, you need to be able to push the right buttons. You need to be able to know what you're doing. You need to be just a little bit more crisp in situations, and sometimes you got to save your players from themselves in the instance of Miami. And so I do hope this is a learning experience, just like you said. I don't want people to come. I always, because like, look, this time last year, we had no idea if Ime was a good coach. And we were wondering if he was going to get to the playoffs and know how to outcoach a Spoelstra and a Budenholzer. And well, we knew he could outcoach Steve Nash, but it's fair to wonder, like, does Joe need to, as much as anybody, endure the bumps in the road to just kind of, get a taste of what this is like? And not the worst thing, but more often than not, he has pushed the right buttons.
And the players are fully bought in. And I think that supersedes everything at this point. But when you're contending for the title and you're under the microscope and there's not much to complain about all year, this is stuff that we're going to do here in the winning plays when we have
that's what we do. We nitpick about, and we come up with random trade ideas because that's all people care about. And because people want to be angry about something, we put Tatum's crunch time and Joe's decision making. But I'm proud of us because we didn't lump Jaylen Brown, because I thought there was a lot of outrage on Twitter last night about those 2 free throws. And there was also like 50 different instances where the Celtics could have won that game.
They missed like 6 shots before Jaylen scored twice.
So shout out to most people who did not lose their mind over free throws. I will say I had a fair amount of people that were just as angry about Tatum missing. I think he was over 5 and overtime. It happens.
All right, let's wrap up. One question: percent chance of a trade deadline deal? Since I'm not sure we're going to talk to you before the deadline again. What percent are you putting on it?
I think it's high now. I've consistently said that this is the first year where I feel like they don't need to make a move, and then I always temper that with, you don't get to this point in the season. I keep saying the same line, so I feel like I'm just a robot at this point, but you don't get to this point of the season, 50 games in, where you feel like you have a legitimate chance, where you maybe have the best chance in the NBA to win a title, and you just don't want to feel like you did last year, where you were one piece short. And I understand that Brogdon now, but it just,
if one guy gets hurt, then
it just complicates everything. And again, as much as I sit here and go, well, they don't need a big. Well, you can rewind this podcast and make fun of me if Robb has an injury or if Al looks 36 for a change. So I love the idea of insurance, and there's certainly a balance you got to strike about overspending. But if you're gonna overspend a little bit, while it's not great business, sometimes the cost of being a championship team is being willing to splurge a little bit. And so I think Brad knows that. I think Brad understands, like, you just can't sit on your hands when you have these sort of opportunities. So it'll be perfectly fine if they elect to go and add through the buyout market. It'll be perfectly fine if they just marginally upgrade their team. But my guess is they're looking around. Brad doesn't usually just tinker. I think, we've seen tries to make a move that really, really impacts the team. So hope he finds it. I'd say 80% of the deal.
80?
Yeah, I'm going 80.
That's what I didn't know. I thought it was gonna be high, but no, we're on the same page.
Yeah, and then, but like, what will it be? Really, like, it's just with Brad, it's a mystery. It could be. I mean, they could trade for a point guard, and I'd be like, yeah, they probably needed that.
Yeah.
What about you? What your percentage?
Yeah, I think 75, 80%. That's where I was going. I thought it was high, but I think you spelled it out. Like, you have a trade exception that is going to go away. So you literally can get anything without having to take anything away from the present. And that in itself is pretty much, I'd say, an obligation deal, because even upgrading Justin Jackson, I still think probably won't matter, but it could. And you have the open roster spot regardless of Justin Jackson. It's just a throw away. And I would be shocked if anyone on the buyout market really pushes needle at all to the point where you're waiting for the buyout market. Like, maybe something, comes through there, but there's not going to be a lot of teams that are in full tank mode at the end of the season based on the standings right now. So I don't think you can count on, like, a lot of guys shaking loose, based off of that.
Odds that Peyton Pritchard are on this roster after trade deadline?
I'd say 80%.
Woo! I'm a little bit more skeptical. I just think I'm going 50-50. I think if a deal materializes, I just think if like a deal materializes, you just don't have a lot of assets.
Yeah.
And I think Brad will have to consider it. And I think the other part of it is, when healthy, there's just not a role for him. And I do think there's a very human side of Brad that says, like, hey, we want this guy to succeed. But it has to be, it has to cut both ways. It has to be like, this has to improve the Celtics, because you're not just getting rid of a guy who's been very good and has sort of taken Hauser's minutes, even though he's not the same player in size. So I'll put that. I'm a little bit more hedging on that. I'll say 50-50, but it depends. Like, if you can make the move without including him, obviously, like, ride it. Right. So he's a good player.
Depends on the caliber of player you actually can get here. So time will tell where that goes. All right. Chris Forsberg, NBC Sports Boston, Celtics Talk Podcast, Celtics Post Up, being Post Game Live.
I just repeat the same things on everything.
Just everything. Check them all out. It'll be all over everything in the next couple weeks as we get up to the trade deadline here, and we'll be back with you guys. We'll probably ramp up a little. We'll see where the rumors go. We'll maybe do a couple podcasts next week or the week after as some elite opponents come to town, and hopefully some, the floodgates open around the league with some moves. But for now, let's go. Right.
Let's get moving.
Let's go. Everyone's just holding.
How about page views?
Tight. Let's go. We need it. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you next week.